Hello there, Tactician. Professor Blab here to bring you the traits and mechanics breakdown for TFT Set 15 KO Coliseum. If you missed the previous video where I covered some core mechanics changes that are coming along with the new set, make sure to check that out first, as you'll want to know about those before diving into the traits. But if you're all caught up, without further ado, let's step into the arena and fight! KO Coliseum's main set mechanic is power-ups. On stage 1-2, and then again on 3-6, a fruit will appear on your board. Simply pick it up and you'll obtain a power-up that you can use on any unit. When you do, you'll be given a choice of 3 abilities tailored to that unit. Some power-ups are common, you'll see a lot shared between different units, but occasionally you'll see some rarer ones, sometimes even unique to that specific unit. Now don't worry, the power-up isn't forever. If you sell the unit or use one of these new power-up removers, you get your power-up back ready to use on another unit, kind of like an item. Or you could use your remover and put the power-up again on the same unit to try and obtain a different power-up. If you played set 13 into the Arcane, these power-ups are going to remind you a lot of anomalies, and you might actually come across few that are directly inspired by some anomalies. But a key difference here is you'll have access to these from the start of the game, so you can build around them very easily, and on top of that, they're easily movable, which are going to make them play very differently. First, you'll find some stacking power-ups which will reward you for getting them on a unit early and building up from even the early stages, great for reroll comps. Other power-ups might give you additional econ and also be great early, but these you might want to swap out later with a remover for more powerful combat power-ups. In general, I do expect set 15 to be a little bit higher tempo than the average TFT set, because essentially these power-ups act like an additional item that everyone has access to at the start of the game. Getting an upgraded unit with some items and a power-up is going to be really essential for building strongboards, especially in stage 2. Overall, a pretty easy set mechanic to understand, but there's a lot of variety in power-ups and a lot of neat combos to find, so time to get creative. But enough about those, let's talk about the traits. And starting with our verticals and kicking things off is Battle Academia. This trait buffs Academia units with potential, providing more potential the more units you field. Each unit is affected by potential a little differently, which is pretty complicated, but really all you need to remember is more units is more power. If you played set 14 Cyber City, this is basically the same mechanic as Amp. Your main carry is the 4-cost Yuumi and your main tank the 4-cost Leona. The trait provides Ezreal and Garen to tie easily into both Prodigy and Bastion, making this vertical extremely easy to play and a great starting point if you're new to the set. As for the Prismatic, the quest unlocks at 7 Battle Academia, during which a counter will tick up each fight for each item you have equipped on your team. Unlocking the Prismatic gives your team a bunch more potential to power out their abilities. One unique thing you'll find about Battle Academia is if you have an emblem, you can actually hit 7 without any forecast, which means you can start unlocking the Prismatic as early as level 7, much quicker than the other ones. But even if you manage to do this, you'll find that it's pretty hard to hit the Prismatic without some item augments, so if this is your goal, make sure to prioritize those. Since your trait doesn't have a 5-cost though, the Prismatic is going to be one of the main ways to cap out the trait. Otherwise, you can throw in more Prodigies than Yuumi, but otherwise it'll be hard to play around other 5-costs. Next up is our summon trait for the set, Mighty Mech. This summons a mech on your board, which powers up as you star up and field more Mighty Mech units. Your main carry here is the 4-cost Karma, and your main tank, well, it's the mech, but you usually will also be playing Jarvan. The trait provides Lucian as a sorcerer to complement Karma, and you can simply field additional strategists to round out your board. Rise in particular is a great choice, activating both strategist and executioner for the comp. But in order to get 7 mech, you will need to find your 5-cost Yone, as there aren't any emblems, so try to push for level 9 if that is going to be your goal. As for the Prismatic of this, it's one of the more unique ones, as it doesn't actually unlock once you get to 7 mech. Instead, you need to assemble 3 different gold augments and hit level 10, which probably makes this one of the hardest to achieve in the set. Definitely a fun one to try, but I wouldn't be surprised if I don't actually end up hitting this before the end of the set. Soul Fighter is our 3rd vertical, with units getting a HP buff and then ramping up AP and AD over 8 seconds. Once you hit the max, your units will deal bonus true damage. Your main carry is the 4-cost Samira and main tank Set. The trait provides Nefiri as a Juggernaut, but you will need to field another edgelord like Yasuo for Samira. To get to 8 Soul Fighter, you will need to find your 5-cost Gwen or have an emblem available. But once you do, you will then need to win 10 more player combats in order to unlock the Prismatic, which hopefully now that you're at 8 Soul Fighter should be pretty easy. But this is definitely one of the less exciting prismatics because to unlock it you already have to be winning, and it kind of just ensures your victory. Once you are able to find Gwen, Lux provides you with 2 Sorcerer, so make sure to keep her around for your board. And our last prismatic vertical is Star Guardian. Star Guardian provide buffs to other Star Guardians, with each unit adding a slightly different buff. If you played Set 14 Cyber City, this works a bit like Divinity Corp, except bonuses do not apply to your other units. So while it might look complicated with all the different buffs, you more or less play it like any other vertical and just play as many as you can. Your 4-cost carry is Jinx and your tank is Poppy, but you'll notice there are no other snipers or heavyweights in Star Guardian, which means without an emblem in order to field 8, you don't really have any other active traits, and most of the time you're just relying on your Star Guardian bonuses to carry you through stage 4. If you do find your 5-cost, however, Seraphine and Syndra will provide 2 Prodigy. Now the prismatic here, once you get to 8 Star Guardian, requires you to spend a bunch of mana during fights to unlock the prismatic. Like the others, this is easier said than done, and this is one of the prismatics I haven't actually managed to hit during my time in PBE, so that gives you a clue at how hard it is. At the very least, to get close, you'll want at least the 2 Prodigy buff from Seraphine, but you'll probably also need a bunch of regen from things like orphans or items. Good luck. Alright, with the verticals out of the way, onto the other traits, starting with my personal favorite, Crew. For each crew unit you field, the units get a slight stat boost, but you'll notice that the trait itself doesn't level up. Instead, you need to 3-star crew units in order to level up your trait. Now, technically, if you manage to hit 5 crew, the trait is prismatic, but there's a catch. That will involve 3-starring your 5-cost Twisted Fate, which isn't going to be easy since you already had to reroll for your other units. Luckily though, the trait itself helps you perform those rerolls. Once you unlock the first tier by 3-starring one of the units, usually Sivir or Malphite, the shop is modified to always give you good odds for your crew units. Essentially what this means is you can always safely push levels, and you'll always see your 1 and 2 cost crew units in shop as if you are at a lower level. In general, the goal here is to star up 3 of your crew units to unlock the ship on your board and then push levels to try and find Twisted Fate. Really love the design here, and I hope they add more like this in future sets. Wraith is a damage trait which stores away damage dealt by Wraith units in the Shadow Realm, which periodically deals that damage to nearby enemies. In addition, this damage and damage by Wraith units will heal the lowest HP Wraith, usually your frontline units either Zac or Cassante. To get to 6 Wraith without an emblem, you'll need to find the 5-cost Varus, but he pairs with Jhin for 2 Sniper. While the trait itself is a pretty generic damage trait, the units in Wraith are actually really unique. Kayle and Jhin are both manaless units, Cassante is a tank that becomes a fighter, and Varus has a skill with a variable amount of channeling depending on how many units he kills. Most often though, the way to play this trait is either reroll for your 1-cost Kayle and Zac, or try to push levels for Varus if you're looking to play Wraith. Crystal Gambit is the cash out trait for the set. While active, you'll gain gem power when you lose fights or kill units. Note that each loss is a flat amount of gem power, and there's no bonus for loss streaking here. Every 4 fights, you'll have the option to either cash out or keep going and double down. While double down, your gem buildup is greatly increased, but if you win a fight in this state, you'll lose half your gem power and be forced to cash out immediately. If you played Set 10 Remix Rumble, this works the same way as Heartsteel. If you manage to find an emblem and can find your 5-cost Zyra, you'll be able to get to 7 Crystal Gambit, which not only gives your units a huge stat boost, but also increases the rewards, allowing you to get higher and higher cash outs. One thing to note though, without an emblem, you can only get up to 5 Crystal Gambit, but this trait doesn't actually increase how you build up your gem power. Instead, the 5 trait just provides additional rewards every few kills. So this can be good in the mid game, but if you don't have an emblem, make sure to drop back down to at most 3 late game for higher quality units, as it's not really worth it to play 5. Another tip is until you actually double down, whether you win or lose doesn't actually change how you're building up to that cash out. So you don't necessarily have to play this as a purely loss streak trade. But of course, if you double down, then you're going to have to. On average, the cash outs you'll see are going to be smaller than the traditional lose streak only cash outs like Set 14's Cypher or Set 13's Cambaron. This will be a hard trait to play optimally, but always worth giving it a try. Supreme Cells grant damage amp to their units, and while active, one of your units is chosen as the Supreme. The Supreme Cell that did the most damage last round gets additional damage amp, as well as executing units below 10% HP. If this unit dies, the buff passes over to the next surviving Supreme Cell. If you field 4, a second unit is now able to become Supreme, along with a big boost to damage amp. Most commonly, if you're playing this trait, your carriers will be either Kai'Sa or Darius. Kai'Sa is a stacking champion, getting AD for every kill, which synergizes great with the Supreme buff, so the earlier you can get it going, the better. Darius also has a unique skill that not only is able to reset when he gets a kill, but gets to take advantage of the new role system by doing massively more damage to tanks. Now, one thing to keep in mind though, this doesn't mean just frontline units. He doesn't get this bonus, for example, against fighters or assassins. If you're looking for a nice 2 and or 3 cost reroll comp, definitely give Supreme Cells a try. Luchador gives its units a small attack damage boost, as well as the ability to heal at half health and perform a jumping stun on nearby units. While you can play 4 Luchador with the traits, the units don't synergize particularly well with each other, and one of your Luchadors, Na, is a 1 cost backliner, making it a little awkward to use his heal and stun. More commonly, you'll see 2 Luchadors splash onto a lot of boards for additional stun. If you do want to go ahead and play a heavier Luchador build, you can, of course, play around Volibear and Edgelords. Our team buff trait for the set is Mentor. This trait only works when you have exactly 1 or 4 Mentor fielded. If you remember Emissary from set 13 into the Arcane, this is very similar. When you have a single Mentor, it provides their buff to your entire team, making them all great utility units. Play all 4 and they will no longer buff your team, but will instead grant each other their bonuses along with getting a big upgrade to their abilities. So if you are playing 4 Mentor, you'll want to focus on itemizing them as they will be your main carries. And our final new trait to discuss is Monster Trainer. When you first buy and field Lulu, you'll get the option to select one of 3 units, Kog'Maw, Rammus, or Smolder. This unit replaces Lulu on your board and fights in her place. The longer you fight with a unit and the more takedowns you get, your monster eventually gains XP, levels up, gains additional stats, and unlocks additional skill benefits at levels 15 and 30. While usually you will just be playing one monster from the beginning of the game and focusing on it, do note that you can always change by refielding the unit and selecting a different monster. Levels and XP also do carry over, so there's no cost to changing. Now, these units don't have any other traits to benefit from, so they're balanced to be quite powerful on their own, particularly once you get their levels up, making them a great reroll option. You can play Kog'Maw or Smolder as backliners with a strong frontline trait, or you can use Rammus as a solo frontline and reroll other 3 cost damage dealers in the back. Either way, it's just really fun to watch your monster level, and this is a really neat trait to try, particularly if you can catch one early on to start leveling right away. And that pretty much sums up all the new traits, but for completeness as always, we'll go over the returning traits as well. Your frontline traits for the set are Bastion for armor and magic resist, Juggernauts for durability, Heavyweights for HP, and Protectors for shields. Duelists are the attack speed trait, Executioners are back as the crit trait, Edgelords are the frontline fighter AD trait, Prodigy is the mana trait, Snipers are back as the generic backline trait, Sorcerers the AP trait, and finally Strategists for a team buff trait. Set 15 is shaping up to be quite the exciting set. The combination of the item and mechanics changes on one hand and some pretty unique traits like Crew and Monster Trainer in the other means we're going to have a pretty exciting first week of experimentation and exploration. As always, if you are feeling lost in the new set, make sure to try the easy to play verticals like Soul Fighter, Battle Academia, and Star Guardian. And as we leave this PBE training arc, I hope you're just as excited about the new set as I am as we enter the main story once set 15 is live. As always, if you liked this video, make sure to give it a like and comment below to help others find it, and make sure you subscribe to know when the set 15 lessons start to drop. I am still on a streaming hiatus and I will be for the release of set 15, but if you want to give me a follow on Twitch to know when I go live, make sure to do that. Until next time, class dismissed.